Hello, everyone. Thank you again for listening, and thank you for this opportunity for me to share some thought with you on another podcast. This podcast today, I am going to share with you some thought, and what we want to focus on is what I am calling a view of religion. We want to look at some things about religion, since religion plays such an important part in world history as well as in our lives as a whole. As we know that religion is as old as mankind itself, and that religion play a very important part in world history. But before we go any further, and I hope that we can do the editing part of this podcast and have it published as soon as possible so that I can insert this part there. Just to remind everyone that be watching and listening this podcast that on September the 23rd, that we will be having a free seminar on trauma. And the title of our seminar will be Adult Living with Childhood Trauma. I hope you plan to attend this, and please, the information is available for anyone that's interested to pre-register on the internet as well as in our Facebook page and also through constant contact. Adult living with childhood trauma, and we will be focusing on healing our inner childhood trauma. Many adults in the world and in our country and in our society living with trauma, that events that happen in their childhood and continue to plague them in their adult life. You'll be surprised to know, I was surprised to know and find out how many adults living with childhood trauma all throughout their lives, and really debilitating effect of mental, emotional, as well as psychological, definitely social effect of childhood trauma. So please join us on September the 23rd, where we will have this event in our studio. Adult living with childhood trauma. But for today's podcast, we will focus on what we call a view on religion. And what we want to say is the fact that for thousands of years, the entire human world constantly at each other's throat over the issue and the subject of religion, creating a very hostile world for every preceding generation. Finding peace in this chaotic environment because of religion remain and continue to be increasingly more difficult. And religion is one of the culprits of this difficulty. The first thing we want to look at is what I call religion and humankind. Religion in us, human, by our own self-created effort, desire to seek and even claim to know the phenomena of unnatural being we call God. This is true of all religion, Islam, Judaism, Catholicism, etc., etc. However, I want to make a point that the biblical corpus do not present Christianity to the world as a religion. Let me say that again. And all of the effort and all of the name of the religion and all the impact, negative impact in the history of religion in the world. One thing that is true, and I am very surprised that so many people are unaware of that, even the educated one, that the biblical corpus, the biblical writing as it is, do not present Christianity as a religion to the world. Let's look at a couple of definitions of religion. One of the definitions of religion is that people's beliefs and opinion concerning the existence, nature, and worship of a deity or deities and divine involvement in the universe and in human life. Another definition says a particular institutionalized or personal system of beliefs and practices relating to the divine or divinity. One more, a set of strongly held beliefs, values, and attitude that someone live by. There are many definitions of religion. These are just few of them we just want to look at. And therefore, the issue of religion remains one of the greatest controversies on the landscape of the world misadventure, one which for many ages not only divide the world of humanity, but has hinged upon some of the worst atrocity committed in the name of religion, and leave us with one, and if I said, most difficult question in the history of the world, even to this day. Is there a God? With all the atrocity, all the things, and the negative effect, and all the claims and philosophies and saying about religion, still leave the world with one of the most difficult questions in the history of the world. Is there a God? It pains me to say that this story and the memory of religions, negative memories that is, have done much untold damages, and undoubtedly it has to humanity and our social relationship. Yes, undoubtedly it has. I wish this moment, I wish today that I could have said that these conflicts had been resolved in usefulness, and for it has thrust before the world of mankind precious truth have resolved the conflict of religion, which without might have been kept in the shade or in the shadow. Unfortunately, I cannot say that. The conflict of religion continues. We have not yet solved it, and I doubt that we will ever. The tension of religion have reached, I believe, a pivotal point in the world and the history of the world. In this very moment, there was never a time in the history of the world where we feel any comfortable that we will even near deal with this conflict of religion. But I believe in this very moment in the 21st century, the tension of religion among the nations of the world, amongst people, have reached a pivotal point in the history of the world. And also, I'm sure many of us are aware of that, criticism of religion has long, long history, which goes all the way back even to the formation and the dynasty of the Egyptian, the Hellenists, the Greek, definitely the Roman Empire. Critics have challenged the foundation and its teaching, as well as individual action, goes all the way back, but we can look at from the Crusade to this today, what we call to this postmodernist era in which we are living. Okay? For example, the accusation, as we can look at them very clearly, the accusation and the argument against religion include the supposition that religion is a fate of violence, corruptions, superstitions, polytheism, homophobia, bigotry, pontifications, misogyny, the abuse of women, and sectarianism. All of those fit in the categories of religion. So, as we get deep into this dialogue about religion, it's worth mentioning that determine a religion age depend entirely on how we define what is religion or what we call religion. All religious systems have the root and belief dating back to millennia, meaning that the main differences between each are found elsewhere in the codifications and general uniformity and the age of their wide precept. That's religion. Likewise, omitted is like atheism, which, despite of its natural rejection of an organization, it's known to have existed at least since the 6th century BCE, though we suspected, social scientists suspected, that it has as old as the first string or styrene of religious thought. I was surprised to know for many years there are an estimate of 4,200 different religions in the world today. And these can be categorized into several main religions that include the Roman Catholicism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Judaism. Although Roman Catholicism is often categorized into Christianity, when that happens, Roman Catholic organization will be seen as the largest religious denomination in the world. There are many small yet still prevalent religions such as the Baha'i faith. Hinduism is also generally believed to be the world's oldest religion, although it was founded more than 4,000 years ago. It preceded Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism, as well as all of the other religion. But again, bear in mind that Roman Catholicism itself, when combined with Christianity, appeared to be the largest religious denomination in the world. But in addition, the concept of Protestantism and its many denominations, such as the Lutheran, United Methodist, the Southern Baptist, and the Assemblies of God, and they're also the non-denominational Christians. Islam, on the other hand, is prevalent primarily in the Middle East and Southeast Asia, and is broken into the Sunni, Shia, and the Sufi groups. Hinduism is predominantly in India. Buddhism is prevalent in Asia, such as Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, although it's originated primarily in India. One variant of Buddhism is Zen Buddhism. Judaism originated in Israel and Baha and Iran. There are also numerous indigenous or folk religions throughout the world. 4,200 different religions breaking up in various small group, denomination, and fragmented group. Although, excuse me, there appear to be many facets of Christianity and multiple denominations, and while most adhere to the basic tenet and strive to live lives by the inherent principle of a religion, again, Christianity does not present to the world from the narrative we believe the Bible is the foundational principle of Christianity. Nevertheless, Christianity does not present itself to the world as a religion. I need to say that. To the world, to say the least, at which has done us all the vast amount of endurance, that is religion speaking, on every level. Religious and all of his doing has affected the world mentally, emotionally, definitely socially, and psychologically. Many miscalculations have arisen out of religion, and particularly for two reasons we want to look at. One is that generation that have altogether ignored the order of reality. You see, there are set rules and the nature of reality. Many generations have altogether ignored those fundamental principles that build in and what we believe we call reality. And two, many generations have gone way too far with the manufacture of artificial beliefs. So I believe those 2 points I just made, I'm sure there are others, have pivotal effect in the history of religion. Ignore reality and have gone too far with manufactured artificial beliefs. Religion, we need to be reminded, is but human endeavor with its anxious curiosity fanned between the folded leaves for divine purposeful existence. Eagerness and thirst of the human heart and their desire to discover unnatural secrets, to solve the mysteries of life, to draw aside the folded curtain of existence, and to ascertain that which is past finding out. And the temptation often with the wildest conjecture and the most adventurous of mental speculation. These presumptuous inquiry are both foolish, immoral, and, as we know, corrupt. Has anyone noticed that human, when left to act our own will, we digress and deviate farther and farther away, even from our own self, while drowning in our delusionary folly, be it from scientific inquiry to philosophy to dreams and rational or irrational speculation when we being left to our own. The mystery of existence is far too deep, by which the bridges between the known and the unknown for human reason cannot peer to know where one end and the other began. The mystery of existence is far too deep for the human reason to know where one dimension starts and one end. Even the strongest glasses of human manufacturers cannot fathom the mere corner of the intense realm of the inherent existence. They are too bright for our weak philosophical reasoning, too sublime for our finite mind to scan, even at a humble distance of our core anxious desire. Be it, I would say, ours to take all that we can of the solemn importance of existence and gracefully to fall on our faces while pouring our soul in despair. That's what existence will do to us. Like many of his predecessor and contemporary, taking a look at the philosophical explanation. One of the philosopher by the name of Immanuel Kant was greatly impressed with the scientific advances made by his predecessor, Isaac Newton, and others. His new evidence of power in human reason, however, called into question for many of the traditional authority of politics and religion, in particular, the modern mechanistic view of the world, call into question the very possibility of human morality. Kant, central figure in modern philosophy, he synthesized early modern rationalism and empiricism, set the term for much of the 19th and the 20th century philosophy, and continued to exercise significant influence even in today's in metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, political philosophy, aesthetics, as well as other fields. Very influential philosopher. The fundamental idea of Kant, critical philosophy, especially in his three critics, the critic of pure reason, 1781, 1787, the critic of practical reason, and the critic of power of judgment, 1790, is human autonomy, Kant says. He argued that the human understanding is the source of the general laws of nature that structure all of our experiences, and that human reason give itself the moral law, which is our basis for beliefs in God, freedom, and immorality, philosophy of religion. Therefore, scientific knowledge, morality, and religious belief are mutually consistent, according to Kant, and secure because they are all rest on the same foundation of human autonomy, which is also the end of nature according to the teleological worldview of reflecting judgment. And therefore, Kant introduced the unifying, the theoretical and practical part of his philosophical system. But it was saying that even though Immanuel Kant did not share any conventional religious belief personally, but he was very acutely aware of just how much religion has contributed to his family, to his parents' ability to cope with all of the hardship of their existence, and how useful religion could be in fostering social cohesion and community. Kant was writing at a highly interesting period in the history we know as the Enlightenment. In an essay he called What is the Enlightenment, published in 1784, he proposed that the identifying feature of its age was its growing secularism. Intellectually, Kant welcomed the decline in belief in Christianity, but in practical sense, he was also alarmed by it. He was a pessimist about human character and believed that we are, by nature, intensely prone to corruption. It was this awareness that led Immanuel Kant to formulate what will be his life project. His life project, the desire to replace religious authority with the authority of reason, that is, human intelligence. Human intelligence. When it comes to religion, Kant sums it up, his view in a book entitled Religion Within the Bound of Reason Alone. Here he argued that although historical religion has all been wrong in the content of what they believe, they had latched onto a great need to promote ethical behavior, a need which remains very great today. Men search for ethical foundation. It was in this context, therefore, Immanuel Kant came up with the idea for which, perhaps still most famous, what he called the categorical imperative. This strange sounding term first appeared in the horrendously named work, groundwork of the metaphysic of moral. The categorical imperative state, what did Kant mean by this? And yet, this was only a very formal restatement of an idea that had been around for a very, very long time. Something we meet within all of them in religion. Kant was offering a handy way of testing the morality of an action by imagining how it would be if it were generally practiced and the world will be its victims, you and I. The categorical imperative is designed to shift human perspective to get us to see our own behavior in a less immediately personal term and thereby recognize some of its limitation. Let's take a sociological view of religion. To do that, we're going to look at Max Weber. He formulated a thesis arguing that such a process associates with the rise of capitalism and modernity. Weber is known for his thesis combining economic sociology and the sociology of religion, emphasizing the importance of cultural influence embedded in religion as a driving factor, even capitalism. Religion, being a progressive and universal institution, is deeply rooted in human being, he continued. It is not just a strict institution, but also exerts a tremendous influence upon all other institutions, says Max Weber. Many sociologists and anthropologists were fascinated by the mystic side of religion. Weber, therefore, was no exception. What Weber was concerned within the sociological aspect of religion was not that religion of everyday life, but on the political, administrative, economic, and the moral behavior and differences of historical situation that he tried to understand and reduce to order. His studies say that religion, which is based on cultural need, religious, which based on cultural need of a man, has now added new dimension to human life and human development, says Max Weber. He also suggested that Protestant institution and its ethic have played an important role in the development of their economy. This idea of Weber has been beautifully described in his highly acclaimed book, Protestant Ethics and the Spirit of Capitalism, 1905. In the book, Weber gives prolonged description of his kind of religion. The Sociology of Religion by Max Weber is a piece, all his sociology. This study promulgates how far, particularly sect of religion, can influence economic behavior of its followers. Weber's main concern was to what extent religious conception of the world of existence has influenced economic behavior of various society, and especially the Western society. Max Weber said that Calvinist sect of Protestant Christian religion has strongly influenced on the development of capitalism, sociology of religion. The theory also captures several significant socio-economic influence which distinguish Western from Eastern characteristics. He also embarked upon through what's called the method of differences, a comparative survey for the relation of economic ethics of world religion to economic life, and to underline those elements of the economic ethics of the Western religion which differentiated them from others. While many denominations in the world and in the West claim to be Christian and believe in a monotheistic God and the teaching of Jesus, each of these denominations has its own unique set of tradition that, for the most part, are not in line with biblical corpus. The self-made method of worship, for example, and philosophy that are not taught either in the Old or in the New Testament. Many, if not all of those denominations in the United States, for example, in the West as a whole, we see throughout the 20th century and continue to this very day, this 21st century, more and more Americans are identified as non-religion more than ever before. Let's look at the philosophy of the mind, religion, and cognitive science. I believe in our pursuit to understand this complex subject we call religion, it is very important for us to also look into the human mind. What is the mind? How does it work? What kind of things one has in the mind? What are the relationship? Okay, what are the relation amongst emotions, perceptions, thoughts, and implicit attitude influence our human action regarding beliefs? What is the place of subjective experience in the natural world? We should look at all of these because these are some of the important parts we should take into account when we tackle our search for why religious belief and its physiological influence have such a great impact on the mind and our cognitive process. Our aim should also be to discover the nature of our individual mental process in regard to beliefs. To do so, we must therefore adopt all of the variety of method and approach, ranging from conceptual analysis to personal experimentation, from phenomenological description to engagement with psychology of the mind, if we are to understand religion and all of its aspects. We should also look at neuroscience and our theory of evolutionary psychology with respect to self-knowledge, what we think or believe we know. And the acquisition of the human thinking capacity, both in terms of theoretical and experimental, we must pay attention to our own implicit bias and its role in selectivism, because that is a system that based doctrine on natural and artificial or social selection. It's used in biology and psychology and in philosophy. In psychology, selectivism refers to the provision of service and support and select of social group. So we need to look at all of those aspects in our pursuit to understand the impact of religion on the human mind. We must also give interest to the implicit cognition and its relation to our conscious thought. that should lend itself to our developmental understanding of the original and the sophisticated layered of our model state of the mind. We need to thoroughly investigate practical reasoning, in particular, how the interplay of human desire to know the unknown, intention and habit, and rationalize our action. These investigations can offer in-depth analysis of the human imagination, particularly when we come with the subject at hand, religion. The former has focused on our mental imagery, while the latter on the role of our imagination. One of the very influential individuals, the name Dominic Gregory, the leading philosopher of perpetual imagery, have examined the context of perpetual experience vis-a-vis the content of mental images. And so we have all of those ideas and places that we need to take into account, and we delving into what is religion. The metaphysic of the mind is also central to work out, which is one of the individuals by the name of Keith Fuenkish, that phenomenal consciousness posed the greatest challenge to materialism, since it is unclear, to put it in mildly, how the human brain can give rise to feelings, sensation, and other conscious experience. We need to pay attention to all of those. For several decades now, we have seen the world that is desire faith, not organized religion. Many people believe in a monotheistic God and study of the teaching of the Bible, but do not identify with a particular religion, the structure and the rigidity of organized church, and the antithetical to everything, okay, from the scripture or the biblical corpus represents. Instead, they don't want to attend any service on a regular basis. In the United States, for example, Americans are leaving organized religion in droves. They disagree with the churches on political, moral, and personal issues. They feel they're restricted by the dogma. They're deserting formal organization of all kinds. And these people are not becoming atheists, however. They're just removing toward the identity and captured by the term spirituality instead. Approximately 64 million Americans, that's 1 in 5, identified as spiritual, but not religion. And so we see there's a hunger, where faith in something and religion cannot fill that void. And so therefore, I submit to you, religion is human-made. That's what religion is. By our own effort, desire, seeking, and even claim to know the phenomenon of this being we call God. And this is true to all religion, as I mentioned in our opening remark. And so religion continues to be a divisive and will continue to be a divisive so long as we continue to associate it with the concept of God. One of the things that's very, very troubling to me, and I have said that before, and I attempt to say it again, one of the things that is very, very troubling to me is when I hear educated men and women take on stage to talk about religion, and in the same sentence they're talking about religion, they're talking about 3 different things that I believe, as far as I can tell, are separate in their essence. They were talking about religion, and in the same sentence they're talking about God, and they're talking about Christianity. I believe there's strong evidence to indicate religion is one thing. God is something completely different, and Christianity is entirely different. So I am surprised to see educated people, well recognized, influential individuals with all kinds of educational accolades, degrees, honored, recognized, will stand in front of the world talking about all of those three things as though they all are one. And let me repeat that again. If you're going to talk about religion, that's one thing. I understand all this religion claim to have God. And one of the things that concerns me a lot is that these people fail to realize many of those religions have multiple gods. They're not the same. One thing they have in common is human desire to know the unknown. When you're talking about God, you're not talking about religion. When you're talking about God, you're talking about something you don't know anything about. Anymore, I do. God cannot be known by human. And so whatever it is you're saying about God, you're talking about your mind. You're not talking about God. God cannot be known by human being. God cannot be reasoned by human being. No philosophy, no reason, no psychology we can conjure up can explain the existence of God. Science cannot prove there is God anymore can it disprove there is no God. So if you're using science in any way, shape, form, or fashion, you're talking about your mind, you're not talking about God. God cannot be explained by mere mortal man. And so those are the things that I find to be interesting. Quote unquote, educated men and women all through history, not just in today's postmodern world, will dare to look at the world and believe they can explain the existence of God or the lack of it. Human cannot. And so therefore, please do us a favor, do yourself a favor, do the world a favor when you're talking about religion, and whatever it is you understand about it. If you're talking about gods, there are multiple, there are hundreds, thousands of gods. But if you're talking about this God, whatever you want to use the term God for, this God, this unknown God, I don't think there was words in the human vernacular that dare to claim that it made the sufficient ethos required to explain God. I listened to a podcast of an individual, one of the well-known atheists in the world. I don't believe that. I'm just repeating that, by the name of Sam Harris. I have great respect for him as a human being, but he denied the existence of God, but praising science. To me, it takes more faith to believe in science than it is to believe in God. Yet this man is recognized as some kind of great speakers and intellectuals. And I think mankind is full of delusion. We will reject that which we don't know, and then we will praise and elevate illusion of another human being. Beware of your limit, lest you find yourself asleep in a bed without dreams. Mindful Conversation for Critical Thinking is the name of our podcast. I would appreciate your comment. Please subscribe. Give me your point of view. Tell me what you think. If you're so inclined, join me in a conversation. I will welcome anyone who's willing to engage me in a conversation about religion, separate topic, God, completely different topic, and Christianity. Please subscribe to our podcast. Give me your opinion. Criticize if you may. I will welcome any criticism and share with me your thought on this podcast, a view of religion, and the little bit of history that I share with you. Again, just before I close, I want to thank you for your time. And I want to remind you, I do not take your time for granted. I will appreciate coming from you. But let me once more remind you, on September the 23rd, we will have a free seminar on adult living with childhood trauma. All of the information is available on the internet. You can go on our Facebook page for End Search Innovation. Please pre-register. The event is free. It's not on religion. We're talking about trauma. One of the things that is so prevalent in the world, so prevalent in our society, definitely so prevalent in the United States and all around the world. Trauma, adult living with childhood trauma. And I plan to talk about that in the future. But just to remind you, on September, that's next month, and I'm going to do the due diligence to edit this podcast so I can quickly publish it out there, put it on Facebook, and put it on our YouTube channel so you can have this information about the upcoming seminar on adult living with childhood trauma. Then again, thank you for listening. I appreciate your time, and I will welcome your comment for Mindful Conversation for Critical Time, the name of our podcast. And this podcast is a production of End Search Innovation. End Search Innovation, bringing clinical knowledge in this transformational world of ours. Mindful Conversation for Critical Time. Thank you very much. Until next time, be well. I want to thank everyone for listening. And if you haven't subscribed, do so to stay tuned with our future conversation. Again, this podcast is a production of End Search Innovation. Once again, thank you for listening.